A Course in Miracles. Lesson 33. There is another way of looking at the world. Today's idea is an attempt to recognize that perception of the world can shift in both its outer and inner aspects. A full 5 minutes should be devoted to the morning and evening applications. In these practice periods, the idea should be repeated as often as feels comfortable, with unhurried applications remaining essential. Alternate between surveying outer and inner perceptions, without an abrupt sense of shifting. Merely glance casually around the world perceived as outside, then close the eyes and survey inner thoughts with equal casualness. Try to remain equally uninvolved in both, maintaining this detachment as the idea is repeated throughout the day. The shorter exercise period should be as frequent as possible. Specific applications of today's idea should be made immediately whenever a situation arises that tempts disturbance. For these applications, say, "There is another way of looking at this." Remember to apply today's idea the instant distress is noticed. It may be necessary to take a minute or so to sit quietly and repeat the idea several times. Closing the eyes will probably help in this form of application. Lesson 33. There is another way of looking at the world. There is another way of looking at this. A man lives in a prison cell with the door unlocked. Not cracked open, not broken, unlocked. He wakes up every morning and paces the floor, counting steps like a ritual. He knows exactly how many tiles there are, exactly how far the wall is from the bed, exactly where the light lands at noon. He calls this knowledge being realistic. Every hour, on the hour, a bell rings somewhere outside the cell. The bell never yells, it never accuses, it never explains how he got there. It only rings. At first, the man ignores it. Then, one day, in the middle of a familiar argument with the wall, the bell rings again. He freezes, annoyed. Not because the bell hurts, but because it interrupts a story he was in the middle of proving. Out of reflex, he mutters, "There is another way of looking at this." Nothing happens. The walls don't move. The cell doesn't change. But something subtle loosens, like a fist that didn't realize it was clenched. An hour later, the bell rings again. This time, he notices where he's standing, pressed into the same corner he always swears he hates. He says the words again, softer. There is another way of looking at this. The words don't argue with the cell. They don't debate the past. They don't demand freedom. They simply refuse to participate in captivity. By the third or fourth bell, something strange happens. He notices the door. Not dramatically, not like a movie reveal, just a noticing, the way one notices breath after holding it too long. The door has always been there. The bell never pointed to it. The bell never told him to leave. The bell only kept interrupting the trance of certainty long enough for seeing to occur. And here's the part nobody believes until it happens. The door didn't open when he decided to leave. It opened when he stopped insisting there was only one way to see the cell. Freedom didn't come from escape. It came from no longer defending the prison as truth. There is another way of looking at the world. 9 words, not a weapon, not a philosophy, not a plan. A pause, a bell, a refusal to confuse perception with law. Say it often enough, and the walls don't fall. They simply lose authority. And one day, without drama, without effort, without judgment, you notice you were never locked in. Submitted for consideration. A man, a moment, and 9 unassuming words. No thunder, no revelation carved in stone. Just a quiet interruption in the machinery of certainty. Because prisons rarely announce themselves as prisons. They arrive disguised as facts, habits, conclusions,
and the way things are. And the bars are not made of steel, but of unquestioned perception. The remarkable thing is this: the door was never locked. It never required force, virtue, intelligence, or time to open. It only required a willingness to admit that what was being seen might not be all there is to see. In that small pause, between reaction and recognition, a different world becomes visible. Not a better one, not a fairer one, but a truer one, where judgment loosens its grip, where urgency dissolves, where the need to be right quietly exits the room. And so the lesson does not shout. It rings, again and again, on the hour. A simple reminder from a place beyond fear, beyond blame, beyond the walls we swear are solid. There is another way of looking at this, and in that other way, the cell vanishes. You have just crossed into a region known as perspective, a place where freedom is not earned, not fought for, not granted, only recognized. Welcome to the Twilight Zone.